Sam Cotton, theathletic.com, college football writer, columnist, analyst, all of the above, joins us on 365 Sports. Sam, thank you very much for your time today. So you wrote an article about the SEC and some rivalries being renewed, which I think is great. Your thoughts about A&M in Texas? We discussed this. Craig had a quote from Del Conte yesterday, and we, of course, heard from Ross Bjork as well. Is there any possible way that game, if it's going to be in 2024, won't be in College Station?
Yeah, I guess anything could happen, but the sense that I get is, and again, this is just based on what Ross Bjork has said at Texas A&M, the athletic director. Of course, we saw what Del Conte said in response to that, but they're not coming out and saying it directly, but I get the feeling that it's probably a little bit of an assurance, a little of a wink and a nod from the SEC office of, okay, you guys voted for Texas to come in the SEC. We'll let you have that one when we make the schedule. We won't know for sure, obviously, until the schedule actually comes out. But, yeah, I would anticipate that happening just based on how that all developed.
Sam, do you think there's a chance that they're not in their the pod or whatever of the three constant teams together?
No, if it's three permanent opponents, Texas and Texas A&M are going to be paired up without question. The only way that they're not a permanent opponent is if they stay at 8 conference games and they go with the 1-7 setup, which I hope not. I hope that they go with the 3-6 because to me that just I think you get through those. You'll get through the teams in the same amount of time in either setup, but I think 9 conference games is better. I think the TV networks are probably going to like that better because you're getting better matchups. You're trading one of those non-conference games that may be against a group of 5 opponent or something like that, and instead putting an SEC opponent there. So the only way that Texas and Texas A&M are not seeing each other on an annual basis is if they stay at 8 conference games and go to 1-7. Now, it's still possible that it ends up that way, but I would call it unlikely at this point. All the momentum from everyone I've talked to, from everyone people on our staff have talked to, the momentum seems to be in favor of 9 conference games with the 3 permanent opponents and 6 rotating otherwise.
Sam, how much just relief do you sense and excitement as well? I mean, on the one hand, the Big 12 question's now been solved. We know for a fact that Texas and Oklahoma are playing their final season. That was expected, but we didn't really know here until recently. And on the other hand, I mean, you talk about Del Conte's comments. It's been a really long time since we've seen some back and forth between heads at Texas and Texas A&M, and we can go, hey, they're actually going to play each other in the relatively near future. This isn't just going to be talking and then, they don't play for 10 years. Just how much anticipation and excitement do you sense now that there's some questions answered and you kind of start getting into that, that sense of what it will be like to have this rekindled again?
Yeah, I think the fans certainly are fired up because the first thing I saw was once the Texas OU deal was done and finalized for 24, a lot of what I saw on my timeline was fans getting excited about Texas A&M playing finally again. And for me, it's a sense of relief because it was aggravating the last 11 years listening to the officials at both schools and fans of both schools play this game back and forth and he said, she said, and they're pretending like they don't care about one another when we know they do. We know they follow each other's recruiting classes. We know that they pay attention to what the other team does on the field, but they don't actually play. Did one team decide that they didn't want to play a bowl game against the other team? That stuff drove me bananas, and I hated every second of it. Yep. And I'm glad we're at a place now where we can talk about a game that's actually going to happen. We just got to figure out when and where, but we know it's going to happen, and I'm glad that's coming back because I grew up in the state of Texas watching those 2 teams play around Thanksgiving or Black Friday every year. So I'm excited for that actually happen, and I can't wait for the game to actually come because I think it's going to be one of the hottest tickets out there, and I think the atmosphere for that first reunion is going to be incredible.
Yeah, you wonder, and the numbers it will get based on when they finally get here and who they are, regardless, just because they're renewing it. Sam, would you do something different than what they might do with those 3 common opponents that they always – is there another way to go look at the scheduling like what the Big 12 might do? Is there anything else that's ever come to your mind on how to do a schedule better when there's not going to be divisions?
Yeah, I think it's just hard because the ultimate goal, and I think the goal that the SEC has right now, and Greg Sankey has expressed multiple times, is getting everybody in the conference to play each other more frequently. And we're at a place right now where, with the division setup that you have now, Georgia has still not visited Texas A&M at this point, and they've shared a conference since 2012. So that to me is, I think, one of the biggest impetus is to getting this fixed. I don't know what other solutions there are. Like I said, the 1-7 makes sense, but I think 3-6 is a lot better, just because there are most of these teams have multiple true rivals, and being able to keep those. That's what we like about college football. And for one thing, is realignment has broken up a lot of these rivalries. The one good thing about Texas moving over to the SEC is it's bringing some rivals back together, bringing them back with A&M, bringing them back with Arkansas, and it's keeping them with OU since OU's making the move with them. So I'm happy for that, and I think that's ultimately what our goal should be in scheduling. Our goal should be, obviously, play everybody as often as you can, but keep those games that mean the most, because that's ultimately what we love about college football. We love to watch the teams that we either dislike the most or that are closest in proximity to us, the ones that we like to talk about at the water cooler, at the office on Monday morning with our coworkers. Those are the games that matter the most, and that's why we really love this sport. And so the more often you can make sure those games are played, the better off we all are.
Sam, do you feel that there will be, for this 2023 season for A&M, for the last season without this rivalry, particularly because their fans' measuring stick is still more or less Texas, even though they've been in the league for that long? Is there maybe more pressure on this year to right the ship even than there would be, because this is the last year you don't have Texas, even coming off a 5-7 season like they had?
I think it's less to do with Texas and more to do with, I think, Jimbo Fisher, because if they don't bounce back this year, then I think the fan base really starts to lose faith long term in him. And if that happens, well, where do you go? Because he's under contract until 2031, and you owe him more than $80 million. So there's not really much you can do. So I think that to me is more of a priority and more of a reason why they need to bounce back and at least get back to at least 8-4 or something, in 9-3, somewhere around that line, because A, the schedule lightens up a lot this year compared to last year. B, the 2024 schedule we know is going to be a lot tougher. Right now, as the schedule, which it's not going to be, if you look at what A&M's 24 schedule is supposed to be, I think they are supposed to get Georgia that year. That schedule is going to be tougher than the 23 schedule, but obviously it'll change once the SEC decides on its format. So this is going to be a big year, and they bring all these guys back. They bring back a ton of starters on offense. They bring a ton of guys back on defense. They've made a lot of changes, so it's huge for them. But also, as it relates to Texas, to your point, that to me matters in recruiting, because the balance of power in this state in recruiting always kind of shifts back and forth between those two schools in recruiting. And obviously A&M had it last year with that number 1 recruiting class in the 2022, but Texas has now signed 2 top 5 classes, including the number 3 class in 23. So right now it's kind of tilted in Texas's favor. So that to me is where it relates to Texas the most. But more importantly than anything is Jimbo Fisher's future. Is they've got to win this year if they're going to restore some faith in him long term.
Speaking of recruiting, and the money's starting to get, bigger and crazier, and we're starting to see some separation, but there's definitely the groups of haves and have-nots, and A&M is certainly a have. And last week we learned about them trying to have a little bit more with the 12th Man Foundation getting involved in the NIL arm of Aggie athletics. Can you kind of explain why this is different, and why when this headline and this story sort of dropped, everybody was like, oh, wait, what is this about? They've kind of, it seems like, Sam, been on the cutting edge of trying to utilize NIL as best as anybody else. But what does this do that's different and kind of, I don't know if it's groundbreaking or what you would call it, with this part of the NIL deal?
Yeah, it really, it's as close as we're getting, at least to this point, of money coming from the school above board. We're not there yet, but the 12th Man Foundation pretty much runs in lockstep with the athletic department. Obviously, in an official capacity, it's not a part of the university. It's not a part of the athletic department. But a large portion of the athletic department's funds at A&M come from the 12th Man Foundation. So if you have that entity, which is pretty organized, pretty obviously it has a lot of funds and pretty powerful, having that entity in charge of a collective or in charge of NIL, that really, I think, unifies a little bit more. I think it gets us more to an organized place as opposed to right now where you have the situation across college football where you have schools that have multiple collectives and you have all these different boosters that are involved and calling shots. And it's kind of sort of out of the coach's control. I mean, certainly you can tell the boosters what to do and what you want, but they're really under no obligation to do anything you want them to do. And that's where I think you can find the mess that you saw Florida in, where Florida ended up losing a blue chip quarterback because the collective that it had, wasn't able to come up with the money for a deal that it had promised. And that's the last thing you want in this NIL game is you don't want people falling through on deals and not being able to deliver what they promised. And when you get an entity like 12th Man Foundation that's been doing this forever, and this is their business, is raising money for the athletic department, doing it for athletes is just another step, and it just requires a little bit extra, maybe a few extra people, a little bit more organization, but otherwise it's a pretty well-oiled machine, and I think it's pretty smart on Texas A&M's part, and I think you're going to see a lot of programs try to mimic this if they find that it makes sense and that's going to fall within the rules.
Sam, the story that came out yesterday about Apple TV Plus and the Pac-12, there's a lot of reaction to it. That kind of seemed like the reaction was like a thud. I listened to a podcast with Alrand and also Marshawn, and they do a great job on sports media. What was your take on that when you saw that might be, I've been told that there's nothing there, and also might be what the Pac-12 has to lean on?
Not surprised, just because obviously the way the negotiation had gone with their current partner, it certainly seemed like the Pac-12 was scrambling a little bit. And obviously, if you're going to create a competitive bid and you're going to maximize your value, you need multiple bidders. And so if only one of them is going to be linear, then that means you're going to need streamers. And that's where Amazon and Apple come in. I don't think it's the end of the world for the Pac-12 because it's still, even if they do end up going with Apple TV, they're still going to get a ton of money because we know Apple has a ton of money. And so that's where Amazon and Apple can help the Pac-12. But what does the money mean if not everyone can see your game? And that's the key, because we're talking about, okay, for fans of my age or younger, certainly streaming is kind of secondhand and natural, and even maybe some a little older than me. But when you get the older you get, the people that have had cable forever and really don't want to change, don't want to learn all this other new stuff, I totally understand that. And so anytime you create an extra step that somebody has to take, or an extra account that they have to have, or extra money they have to pay to get a game that they want, you're going to lose some people off of that. So I certainly understand why some people reacted negatively to that. I don't know what the answer is because I'm not a TV expert, and it's certainly far out of my expertise. But I certainly understand why people would get concerned about that, because the more you kind of cordon off all this stuff and section off all these games on different platforms, you're going to have fans saying, well, I have to subscribe to all these things to get, Pac-12 games, and then you're going to get people frustrated, and ultimately you're going to leave people out, and that's going to hurt building your fan base and your brand long term. So I definitely see kind of both sides of that.
Sam, thank you very much for making time and having time for us today. We appreciate everything. Writing, of course, for theathletic.com, and Sam Kahn on 365 Sports. Sam, have a great day and the rest of the week.